Don't engage alone. We do this together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got it. We got
New 52 booklet.
it. Somebody clip this.
Welcome to Under Two Capes, episode 203. I'm Jared, and I'm here with Brucifer. What's up, dude?
What's going on? First time here.
I know. It's been a long time coming, dude. So,
I know.
The way I normally do these is that I always like to ask first-time guests, how did you get into comic books?
I believe I was probably like 7 or 8, and my mother always used to like go into bookstores and buying books, and there just happened to be a box of comics, and I grabbed I forgot what issue it was, but it was an X-Men book from the early 80s.
There you go.
So that got me hooked, and I just snowballed from there.
Marvel or DC? Which one is better?
DC.
Ah, thank you. Thank you. That's the correct answer on this show.
I don't have time for people that don't understand that DC can be dark and be fun at the same time.
Oh my god, that's my problem with like a lot of superhero movie conversation that's been going on ever since like the Snyderverse, because it's like everyone treats it like DC movies or DC comics have always been like puppies and rainbows, and I'm like, no, you clearly haven't read Blackest Night, for example, or Kingdom Come. And I'm like, yeah, and that's the hilarious part about people on Twitter. They clearly haven't read the books.
The problem I have is when I'm on channels, Max's channel in particular, and when I suggest maybe you should just read the source material, you'll get a better idea of the characters. Why do I have to read? Like, what? You're enjoying comic book movies? Come on, guys.
Comic book is it's part of the name. You're watching movies based on characters that are in, because here's the thing, yes, a lot of movies you can find like comic book accuracies in a lot of films. It's like even with Green Lantern, there were certain parts of that was like, okay, that's pretty spot on. It's like, but even with like when people were saying, for instance, Henry Cavill Superman, that's not Superman. Yeah, it is. That's the Superman that was coming on the comics now.
Yeah. You know, the problem is people's knowledge of comics is early 80s, mid 90s, and a lot of readers fell off when they killed Superman, and they didn't make $1 million off that book.
No, they didn't.
You know, people tried to pay for the college funds with those books. I don't understand it, but okay. So they never picked up a comic book after that. So they didn't see what Superman went through in his personal life, and just even after Dark Crisis or Infinite Crisis or any crisis, they really they wouldn't know.
The last time I think they had an opportunity was after Flashpoint, because everything was like starting from scratch. You didn't have to read anything. That's when I came in, because I was like, okay, you know what? I don't have to read all this lore. I'll check it out. And you know what? That's when I really fell in love with these characters, because they were younger and they were more brash. So I was like, okay, now I get why people like these characters. And then I went back and read like all the classic stuff.
Yeah, I stopped reading comics probably like 95. And that was because of what they did to X-Men. All the variants to Marvel and all their variants. It just was so tiring every week.
Yeah, that's That's one of the that's one of the areas that I think the industry really shoots itself in the foot, is that they publish all these variants and they're like, oh, look at how much our sales have grown. That's because you're publishing all these variant covers of the same book that everyone hates. It's not like everyone's loving the material you're publishing.
And the problem is with that is, even though there's crappy books, people will go out and buy 10 covers of one issue just to get all the covers because they're obsessive.
Well, I'm the guy that when the Snyder Cut came out, I got 3 variants of the Justice League comic coming out at the time because they had the variant covers for the Snyder Cut. So I was like, okay, this I have to get because the movie inspired the creation of this YouTube channel. So I kind of have to get Snyder Cut merch. It's kind of an I don't want to say obsession, but okay, I'll say obsession. It's kind of that. It's kind of that.
I'm not gonna. Well, I did buy when they did Night Terrors last year. I bought every single cover.
Oh, geez.
That was a lot of covers.
Oh my gosh.
I know, but they were so good.
They did look good. My other problem with that is when they did like Night Terrors, for instance, when I saw how many tie-ins were in that book, I was like, good Lord. I'm like, how many of this has to tie in? It's like when Marvel was doing King in Black, and practically every single Marvel book, that's about 80 plus books, tied in. And I was like, why? I don't understand this.
I don't get it. As long as people keep buying variants, they'll keep making them. There's no reason to do what did they just did? They just did a for the latest Duke comic book. They did a 1 in 250. Oh, what comic shop is ordering 250 copies of Duke?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think they're figuring it's a new series that has a lot of positive word of mouth, but still 250 is a bit much. That's what I think, because no one's gonna order 250 of a book that's not of the big two. That ain't happening. If it's a Batman issue, then I understand that. Yes. But other than that, I'm like, nope. But so my next question is, what is your favorite comic book event?
My favorite comic book event is it's a tie between the original Inferno from X-Men, X-Factor and the Mutants, and the Judas Contract.
Oh, of course. Of course, you got to go with that. Yeah. I love that because I'm a big fan of Slade, so I was like, okay, yeah, there you go. I really wish we got that Deathstroke movie because I think that would have been pretty dope.
Yeah. I look back at Judas Contract and I look at the animated movie, which was trash. They could never do that story today. Not the way Terror and Slade.
Yeah, I was about to say, not with that. There's no way they would get certain accusations. You thought you thought the controversy with Cuties was bad.
She was smoking in bed in lingerie in his house. Like, what?
Well, yeah.
Like, was this Epstein Island back in the 80s?
That would be great. It's like all the supervillains are on Epstein Island. That would be great. But yeah, my favorite event for Marvel would have to be probably Avengers versus X-Men, because I too am a big X-Men fan, and I like seeing them go up against the Avengers because obviously the Avengers got bodied, because you have like these characters that basically have the powers of gods versus mostly non-powered individuals. It's like when everyone says Justice League versus Avengers. There's like 8 gods on the Justice League. There's about max 2 on 1 on the Avengers. I'm like,
and Thor is not really even a god.
He's really an alien. He's kind of like Superman, except then you're fighting Thor versus Wonder Woman, which obviously Wonder Woman bodies him. So I'm like, yeah, that's not going to end up well. I get that people want to be loyal to Marvel and stuff because of all the movies, but even the movies, Avengers versus like say Zack Snyder's Justice League, that ain't turning out well for the Avengers.
No, not at all.
But in
That's what
terms
always
of,
that
I'm
always
sorry, go ahead.
kills me. That
Mhm.
always kills me about people that compare
Mhm.
Marvel to DC. It was like, I can relate to the characters in Marvel. I can't relate to characters in DC.
They're
You
not
can
reading
relate
them.
to somebody with spider powers that sticks to walls? Really?
Yeah, it's like the reason why I relate to Superman is because we've all had a scenario where we didn't feel like we fit in anywhere. That's kind of what Superman goes through. Same thing with Wonder Woman.
Hmm.
Batman is about overcoming trauma. So I'm like, you really can't think that way through. Because the way it works, I think a lot of comic book fans are too superficial to look beyond the layers and see,
Yes.
okay, this is why these characters are actually relatable.
Yeah, sure. Because if people actually read Superman comic books, they would know that he has so many different layers to him. From him trying to, people don't realize that Clark is actually his secret identity, and Superman is who he really is.
Mhm.
It's a
Yes.
struggle for him to be an alien on a different world and having to hold back his powers. Just touching someone can kill someone.
Yeah, exactly. So a part of the reason why is because there's this weird mindset in the Superman fandom that Superman is what I can do, Clark is who I am, and I'm like, you're ignoring the alien part. That's the issue with the way DC has handled Superman recently, is that they do too much on Clark and ignore the fact that he's a Kryptonian. He ain't human. That's not the way that works. Which is why, actually, when DC put him with Wonder Woman, I actually thought that was a good idea, because I've made it pretty obvious that I can't stand Lois Lane,
Yes.
and she's
And I
like my
love
least
Lois
favorite.
Lane.
Okay, there you go. But she's like my least favorite DC character. But the point, the thing I always thought about when I was reading that run of Superman and Wonder Woman is that they emphasize that, yeah, they both of them identify with that whole being a stranger in a foreign land and not being able to like fully be who they are, which is
Yeah.
why I have that signed slab over there.
Yes.
But so now, next question is favorite comic book movie.
Hmm. Probably Spider-Man 2.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a big Tobey Maguire fan. I can't stand Tom Holland.
Yeah, a lot of people
That's
can't stand Tom
was
Holland. Is it because he's basically Iron Man Jr.?
it's because he's so even his voice is like he's whining all the time. Just like,
That's true.
dude, just come on.
That is true. I never noticed that before for some reason. He is always whining. Well, Mr. Stark, Mr. Stark. But
Oh.
well, Toby's issue is that he was always crying all the time. I mean, it became a meme.
I know. And then they tried to make him funny by having him dance in the third movie. I was like, oh, why?
Jesus.
Why?
And that has become a Spider-Man meme right there. They even represent the Spider-Verse movie, which I thought was so priceless. Yeah. Mine is probably the Snyder cut, because I'm more of a DC fan. The movie inspired this channel, and plus, I've always been like a specific Justice League fan. Like the Jeff Johns run of the New 52 is what really got me into all this
Yes.
stuff. So, and plus, and that was kind of, the movie is basically following at least the first arc of that plot line, except like obviously modified slightly, but the story beats and some of the dialogue is like spot on. So I was like, okay, there you go. As opposed to the Whedon cut, which I like to pretend never came out, that
Yeah.
it just took them so long to get to a Justice League movie. That's it. I still own it though on DVD, so I can teach my children when they eventually come, and a life lesson of waiting for better stuff.
Never accept the first serving. Always ask for the second better helping.
Yeah, and hey, it worked. We got a solid movie.
Yes.
But so getting to the main topic of like superhero fatigue, particularly with movies, because a lot of movies that came out in 2023, particularly superhero movies, bombed, but some of them deserve to bomb, like the Marvels, but there were a few of them. Like I thought Blue Beetle was pretty good.
I really love Blue Beetle. It was
Yeah.
a really good movie.
And I'm actually pretty happy that Aquaman is kind of having a little upward trend a little bit. So I'm like, thank you. One piece of good news. But like, I mean, the Flash, I kind of understand because there were some pretty like there was some controversy there with the CGI of the actor stuff. So I kind of understand that. Shazam, I don't think deserved to bomb that well.
No.
I think it's majorly because James Gunn came out and announced we're doing a reboot. You don't have to watch any of these movies anymore.
He's such a moron for doing that. He killed the entire slate this year with saying that, well, this is not part of it, but Blue Beetle's in the universe, but this movie isn't. What?
I love when he's like, Blue Beetle is the first DCU character, but the first DCU movie is Superman. And I'm like, that doesn't work.
You know, under the CGI for the Flash, there was a good story there.
It was
a very good story. You know, I will say this. I will admit that the scene when he's saying goodbye to his mother and they're talking, I was just like,
yeah. And I will say that bat fleck on the motorcycle was pretty dope. I love that.
Yeah, that was great. You know, I can see why they want him to come, the director Muschietti, to come back and do Brave and the Bold.
Yeah.
Was it Brave and the Bold?
Yeah, it was Brave and the Bold. Yeah, exactly. See, I enjoyed the base story of the Flash. Does it have problems? Yes. Do I wish it were a legit adaptation of Flashpoint, in other words, beat for beat, instead of like a modified version of it? Hell yes. But I get what they were going for. The thing is, a lot of movies failures being attributed to superhero fatigue. Now, let me ask you this. Do you think superhero fatigue is real?
I think, unfortunately, with the internet, you have a large vocal part of the internet that will hate anything that's superhero based, and then that spreads into the general audience. Like if you look at the Rotten Tomato score for all these movies that released, the audience loved them. The people that saw them loved them.
Yeah,
it was people that didn't see these movies that were hating on them. It's just like crazy. Even people with the Flash were coming out saying they saw the Flash, but they didn't. They lied and were doing fake reviews.
Yes, exactly, and to a degree, yeah. Now the thing is, on that point, I do think that that whole mindset of people hating superhero movies, that's why I'm not entirely convinced that the whole DCU James Gunn is coming out with is gonna advance probably past Superman, because the issue is there's still a majority of there's still a large audience that thinks Superman is a joke character because of like the trunks and the whole gee whiz, and this is like a job for Superman, particularly how James Gunn describes the movie. And then you add on to the fact that people hate superhero movies just for superhero movies. It has nothing to do with a particular director. It just has to do with like they just hate superhero movies. And then it's like it like what's the word? It kind of like trickles down into the actual movie. So in other words, that's why I don't think I don't think we're gonna get the whole DCU.
Yeah. If you look at projects like Superman and Lois, Titans, and Doom Patrol, they did pretty well.
Those were awesome.
They lasted 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah.
And Superman and Lois, I know you hate Lois, but she is the best Lois we've ever had.
Well, let me be clear. I hate comic Lois. I'm fine with movies and TV. I want to be clear on that.
And I think they found the perfect balance between Clark and Superman on Superman and Lois.
Yes, they did. 100%. I'm 100% down with that. What they did with Doomsday and the Doomsday origin, I really dug that. I was like, that's an interesting way to do it. Although the look was kind
at first I thought Doomsday was freaking Bizarro. I'm like, wait, is that Doomsday hung up like in the comics? But no, it was Bizarro.
Mhm. I wasn't a big fan of the design of Doomsday, and I love when people were like, "Oh, it's so comic book accurate." No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Have you seen Doomsday? Exactly. And here's the example: all these people don't read the books, and it seems like a lot of them were like, "Is it not directed by Zack Snyder?" Okay, yes. Okay, it's comic accurate.
Yeah,
And I'm like, what?
you know, that's like when people are saying it's Doomsday. I'm like, I'm looking at this. I'm like, is that Doomsday really? Or is it just a mutated Bizarro? A mutated Bizarro. I'm just like, mm,
It,
I
but
don't know. I didn't like the design of Doomsday in
no.
the final
Mhm.
episode.
No, it's like I don't remember Doomsday having an S shield on his chest, and like the only thing that they got vaguely right were the spikes, but that's about it. But I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, but that's not the comic accurate Doomsday.
No.
It just doesn't work. But and that's that's one of my other issues with like a lot of comic book fandom is that if people are loyal to one director, Snyder fandom does this as well.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a double standard, in other words, if James Gunn does the exact same thing Snyder does, oh my gosh, he's a genius. But if Snyder does it, oh, screw you.
You
It
know, it's
just
just
seems a
like,
little hypocritical.
yeah, it's you know, people choose sides and
Mhm.
they troll each other. I'm just, and a lot of these people that say these things online, they don't believe half the stuff they're
Mhm.
saying. They're just doing it to piss off Snyder fans. I've seen it,
Mhm.
and I don't know. I just let the Snyder fandom just thrive and enjoy what they like. Zack
That's
is
my
eating
thing.
good in Netflix, but no, they want to come over and start trouble like they always do, and then double standards happen.
Yeah, and the other side is encouraged to do so. That's the other thing. No one calls out the really toxic people that do stuff just because
Yeah.
like someone's a Snyder fan. I've encountered a ton of toxicity, particularly as of late in certain streams. I believe
Yes, I saw it.
I'm trying to allude to it without naming names, but
I
it's
saw it.
like that. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's. I'm like, I've told people, hey, listen, just because I've actually played multiple times on my show the remember we're talking about fictional characters clip because I'm like these are why are you getting so butthurt about my opinions over fictional characters? It's not like I'm talking about real people. To some people, these are real people. I get that,
Yes, yes.
which
You
is
know,
sad. It's kind of
for
weird.
some for some people, it's you're ruining my childhood. If if a new interpretation of a superhero character that's fictional ruins your childhood, you should really seek mental help because there's no your childhood was that good that you want to go back to it. I don't want to go back to my childhood.
And the other thing is that people ignore there have been many different versions of these characters throughout. That's why I've long said you can have your favorite version, but there is no definitive version of
No,
these characters.
not.
There's just whichever one you like. Which hey, my favorite Batman is Batfleck, and there are people that like Michael Keaton. I'm fine with that. It's because again, and actually when I interviewed Sam Liu, he was like one of the like producers of the DC animated movies. He said
Yeah.
something very interesting. He said a lot of people are married to the era of comics that they came into, which that's a totally valid thing. You see, I can understand if people say, "Hey, it just wasn't for me," because I've had that, and I'm like, okay, you
Hmm.
know, it's not for everyone. It's not gonna identify with everyone, so that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's like when people take that and start like attacking people, that's when I really have to go, wow.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like I've I've watched all the Star Wars movies.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it's a new director or a new writer reinterpret Star Wars, but you know, I was on a stream, my stream, and somebody
Mm-hmm.
said, "Well, you can't criticize Star Wars if you weren't born before '77." What?
What? What?
I'm
Yeah,
like, you guys are everybody's dying out. That's why they're trying to get new fans. And the same thing is going on with these superhero movies. That's why they had Zack do his version of Superman and deconstruct the character so a new audience can actually enjoy Superman.
yes, and it worked for me because for one thing, I always thought Superman was a joke character,
Mhm.
and then when I saw Man of Steel, because here's what Zack did, which a lot of comic book writers don't do. Speaking of deconstruction, a lot of writers, when they deconstruct a character, they don't build them back up. Zack
Mhm.
built him back up. He was like, I'm gonna take these characters to the fundamental core and tell you why they're great, and then I'm going to build them back up. So now you understand the character. Now you love the character and identify with the character.
You know, it's like growing up, I watched just Super Friends, and they were a running joke throughout most of the time. And then when you actually pick up a comic book and find out these characters are nothing like what they were in that cartoon. Aquaman was awesome.
Yes, in the comics he was cool,
Yes,
but
he was
that
cool.
cartoon, oh my gosh,
he still can't live that image down.
No, it's like if you look at Aquaman around that time period, didn't he have the beard, long hair, and the hook hand?
Yes.
So
Well,
I'm like, yeah, that was badass.
No, yeah, and then when it happened in the 90s when somebody dunked this, I forgot who it was, put his hand in a lake full of piranhas and ate off his hand, which was awesome.
Yeah, I'm like, see, there you go. He's a badass character. It's like in the Jeff Johns Aquaman run. I'm like, this is the character that people think is a joke, but I was like, no. That's why it's important. That's why we should tell people, read the source material, because Aquaman is actually pretty dope, and he's always been dope.
He has. I think this whole superhero fatigue is just, it's made up because you put out a movie people want to see, they'll go.
It's like with Deadpool, the internet buzz when they showed like the Wolverine suit, which looks freaking dope, by the way.
It looks good. I'm not a fan of Deadpool, but
Hey, it's Hugh Jackman coming back from Wolverine the suit. I'll take it. There you go. but yeah, to a degree, yeah, I don't think superhero fatigue necessarily is real. It's just more of like bad movie fatigue, or like perceived bad movie fatigue, because I'm of the opinion that people let Rotten Tomatoes dictate their opinions way too much.
Which is ridiculous.
Which is stupid, because you even had people for Rebel Moon review bombing the movie who never saw the movie just because they wanted to screw Snyder fans. Hell, they even review bombed the episode of Teen Titans Go where he appeared because they didn't want Snyder fans to have a win.
That's so ridiculous. That's like I was on a stream last night and somebody was praising a movie that got like really high Rotten Tomatoes scores. I'm like, oh really? We're doing that now? Now we're cherry picking which scores we're going to use for Rotten Tomatoes now?
Yeah, my whole opinion is that the only one that matters is the audience score. If the audience score is high, then that's one you can go off. Granted, you can still game that, but it's like as opposed to the critic score, because it's like with Man of Steel. The critical consensus of that was based upon Cavill not acting like Christopher Reeve.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's not Christopher Reeve.
You know, and the only thing that's verified when it comes to audience scores is theatrical movies. Streaming movies, you don't have to see, you don't have to see the movie to give a rating. And that's how a lot of shows and streaming movies get review bombed, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is true. The thing, that's part of the because I think that if people didn't take Rotten Tomatoes seriously in terms of ratings, because I think another thing that I do think the whole if people take the ratings too seriously also influence why that they didn't go see like Blue Beetle or like the Flash. Well, the Flash arguably was like everyone was telling me it was the best DC movie since Dark Knight. It's not, but it's like. If people stop paying attention to those ratings and just make their own opinions, I think they would actually enjoy the movies.
Yeah, we didn't have freaking Rotten Tomatoes in the 80s and 90s. You know, there was tons of movies I went to go see that were trash.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of movies in the 80s and 90s didn't do well in the box office, but became cult classics later. One of my favorite movies, crap, I can't even think. Go ahead. But
Well,
I'll think of it.
on that, on that idea. You now have people watching like Man of Steel, BVS,
Yeah,
obviously the Ultimate Edition and Snyder Cut now, and are like, "Oh wow, this is actually really cool. I kind of want more of this." And
yeah.
I'm like, yeah, yeah. If you actually don't take Twitter's opinion seriously, because DC, arguably, that's where Warner Brothers started to go wrong, is they started to listen too much to Twitter, and then look at where they ended up. So I'm like, if you don't pay attention to what Twitter wants and make up your opinion for yourself, you will actually enjoy the content.
You know, like, oh, there we go. I got it in my head.
Go ahead.
The Lost Boys was
Oh,
crap in the movie theater. Fright
Mhm.
Night was crap, but people love these movies now. You know, they're
yeah.
called classics. So,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. And that's why I think a lot that's the interesting part about fandom. It's like I love the people that go, "Oh, I love this. I want to see more of this." Where were you when it was in the movies?
mhm.
That's the other is that's the thing. It's like if you want them to see more of this, you have to if you want them to make more of this, you have to show up. You have to
Yeah.
actually watch the movie.
You know, one thing I didn't understand was the whole boycotting of Black Adam by certain people because of a color of a costume. I'm just like, oh my god! If you don't go, we will not get Cavill again. And what
Yeah.
happened?
I said that. And the thing is, I get where they were coming from at first, because remember the last time we saw Cavill pre Snyder Cut was Justice League. So people kind of Pavlovian like associated the blue suit with Justice League. So I can understand kind of where they were coming from.
Yeah,
But it's like, it's. I said that too. I said if you boycott this movie, they're not going to bring back any of these actors. They're going to just hit the reset button, and there you go. I mean, arguably they could still do more with that, but it's like you had the perfect opportunity to show them you wanted more Cavill and you didn't. But there you go.
yeah,
Black Adam's another movie that came out last year that I actually really enjoyed, and I still do.
yeah. I could watch it over and over. I love Rock's Black Adam, and I've always been a Black Adam fan.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
World War
he was
Three,
always
man. Black Adam, World War Three. That
so
he
good.
murders everyone. I'm like, yes, yes. I recently read that, and I'm like, okay, this is why everyone's telling me Black Adam's so dope.
Yeah, Black Adam's always more than I like Shazam a lot, but Black Adam is just Black Adam and Countdown was freaking amazing. Such a
Oh,
good
yes.
storyline with him.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and I think he's one of the characters that DC doesn't really do a lot with, even though there is so much they could do with, like,
Yeah.
with the movie, or like there's he's been on the Justice League in the run by a certain writer who I absolutely hate, named Brian Michael Bendis. He ruined Superman, so I'm like, no.
Just keep Bendis over there at Marvel.
Yeah, yes, please. Just stay there. You're fine here. I've heard that Jason Aaron's Batman story is actually pretty good. So,
Yeah.
and that's really surprising me, because Aaron's one of those. Aaron's like Tom King in that it's a gamble whether or not you'll get a good story out of it.
He's writing Action Comics
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, he's got. I think.
Did you read it?
I haven't checked that out yet. I want to.
So good.
It's really.
I've never seen Bizarro kick Superman's ass.
Really?
Yeah, he's focused.
That is cool. See, that's what I've noticed. A lot of Marvel writers, when they come to DC, what they end up doing, because I've noticed that there have been an interesting number of Marvel writers that are very controversial at Marvel, then when they come to DC, all of a sudden they can really like do great things here. And I'm like, wow, this is interesting.
Yeah, especially writers that haven't been to DC before, have never worked on DC.
Yeah, I would kind of like to see Jason Aaron on Wonder Woman, kind of to see, because he did Thor, and I kind of want to see how it would handle her mythology. Because here's the thing, I enjoyed the first couple of issues of Tom King's Wonder Woman. My problem with it is that she's very emotionless, and the entire country turns against the Amazons because one Amazon killed like 10 guys in a bar. That wouldn't happen. It's a little escalation.
Yeah. Well, I think it's all the past actions over the years of Amazons. It's not like it's the first time they attacked the United States.
True. But the other thing is, like, Wonder Woman has saved the entire world multiple times, has died for this world and come back, and you're just going to turn on her?
Well, they've turned on Superman, man. How many times?
Oh, yeah. that is true, though. So I kind of get that.
The same thing with the X-Men.
Yeah,
with the X-Men, they're being freaking killed left and right in the comics now.
Well, my problem with the whole X-Men in the Marvel universe is that people hate them because they have a genetic mutation that gives them powers, but they hail the Human Torch who has powers just because he got hit by cosmic radiation. It kind of doesn't work.
It doesn't make sense why some heroes are praised and then mutants are just hated.
It would work more if they were like a Marvel Elseworlds world, like an Ultimate universe, but them integrated, particularly if like they're going to interact. I would love if I don't think they've ever done this, but I really want an X-Men to go, what's the difference between me and the Human Torch?
Exactly.
If you hail Thor and he's like a god with a thunder hammer. Hell, sometimes you even praise the Hulk. And Lord knows how much destruction he has brought out. By the way, Hulk comics recently have been very good.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, they're doing the whole Marvel monster thing, right?
Which I like how they kind of went in a more horror-like direction with Hulk, because honestly, that's the only direction they haven't gone. And and with that character too, it makes a lot of sense. Like in Immortal Hulk, that they had that scene where like the Hulk is in different body parts, then he reassembles himself, and I'm like, this is very disturbing, but actually really cool. I like that.
God, I hated that run of the Hulk. He was a freaking robot or whatever it was.
Oh, the spaceship Hulk.
That was so horrible.
That was so stupid. I'm like,
where is this going?
Yeah, I'm like, wait. Normally, I like Donny Cates' work. He made me a fan of Venom, dude. But that Hulk run is just, oh my god! It's just like, so wait, so this is all in Hulk's mind, but see, it just doesn't. It's really hard to understand. And I'm like, you're going really, really, really. This is an idea that could only be created by Grant Morrison, but somehow it's from Donny Cates. Because with Grant, I'm sorry,
and then they just ended it.
Yeah.
No explanation. Oh, let's just cancel this run and move to the next run. Like, what?
I think it's because they saw that the fan base was kind of going, what? Because remember, you had Immortal Hulk, which was this masterpiece. And then you get Spaceship Hulk. You get Smastronaut. And I'm like, what?
I hope they never do that again. Please don't do that again.
Please don't. Kenny Johnson, stay on the book. You're doing well. Just stay on the book. The other comic that I've been really reading and really digging are the Green Lantern books, both on the regular one and War Journal, because I'm a huge Hal Jordan fan, and I like... And the thing I like about this current run is that it really feels like it's an extension of the Jeff Johns run instead of like the Grant Morrison run, which I still don't know what the hell happened with that one. And then War Journals, it's about time Jon Stewart got some love, because he was like my first Green Lantern, because I first became aware of him, of Green Lanterns, in the Justice League show.
Yeah.
It was to the point that when I first saw Hal Jordan, I'm like, who's this white guy?
I've always been a fan of Hal and John and Kyle. Kyle doesn't get enough love at all.
No, he doesn't. He's so cool. Jessica is like is one of my favorites because I like the idea of an agoraphobic Green Lantern. That actually works really well for her character.
It does. Yeah. One thing I'm glad they pretty much got rid of the stupid yellow. It was their weakness thing that was so horrible.
It's worse with Alan Scott when you figure out his weakness is just wood.
Yes.
Like what? There is that's one of the things that annoys me about some comic book fans, that they'll say, I want to see this, I want to see this, I want to see Mixelplick, and I'm like, that won't translate well to a movie for the general audience. I got news for you, because
it didn't work in Supergirl TV show, so it's not
the problem I think a lot of people realize is that when they make these movies, chances are they're not making them for us. They're making it for the general audience, because there's not enough of us to make these movies $1 billion. If there were, they would be catering to the comic book fans. That's why it's like, if you see the movie Civil War, that's nothing like the comic.
No, not at all.
It's still a good movie, but I was like,
have you read the Alan Scott run that they're doing now?
No, I haven't. I was wisely advised against it.
I love the story. The story is really good. I've been chatting with the writer Tim Sheridan, and I didn't know he actually wrote Masters of the Universe,
which I kind of like.
The one on Netflix.
That show. Yeah, that show is like one of those things where I don't get why it gets the hate, because they're like, oh, she replaced He-Man. No, she didn't. No. He-Man is barely in the movie. Actually, he's not, because if you notice, the show is about the effect He-Man had on the world, and it's like, so really he is in the entire show.
Yes.
And then he shows up and he's a badass. So I'm like, I'm not seeing the issue here.
You know, it's not like Tila was wielding the sword of power. Come on.
No, she never. Everyone thought she was going to, and I'm like, no, they're not going to. She's going to turn into the sorceress. That was her whole thing. She's going to turn into the sorceress, and she did. Lo and behold.
Yep.
That's the other issue, I think, in the comic book movie audience, or like shows, or like media in general. They prejudge things super early before you actually have a chance to see the product. Because I'm like, it's like, yeah, there have been plenty of things like Blue Beetle. Honestly, I didn't think that was going to be as good as it was, but I was like, okay, you know what? I'll go see it. It turned out to be one of my favorite DC movies.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jaime Reyes since he first appeared during Infinite Crisis, and he was spot on in the movie. It was spot on.
The funny part is that I have that first trade by Keith Giffen, and the funny part is I like the original comics Peacemaker way more than James Gunn's Peacemaker. He's less annoying, and I'm like, because here's the thing: I watched all of Peacemaker because I figured, you know what, I'm all about seeing like a writer, a creative's whole story, so I can judge it. It didn't get that much better, because I don't like overly vulgar shows. And that is all that. And I'm like, I get the story reasons for it, but I'm just like, it gets to a point where it seems like the creative is relying on that to mask a bad story.
I enjoy Peacemaker. I'm not a fan of Cena. He annoys me.
Yeah, a little bit.
He really can't act.
Yeah, I don't see him as like this big actor that everyone says is. I'm like, no.
I don't understand. I don't get it. People claim he's like this amazing actor and he's better than The Rock. No.
Compared to The Rock, no. The Rock is a better actor. I will.
Yes.
Even though a lot of times when The Rock plays a part, he's playing The Rock, he's still good. He's still way better than John Cena is, because I noticed is that John Cena is normally the weakest part in a lot of movies, like Transformers, Bumblebee. He was in that movie Blockers. There's so many where I'm like, I don't like you in these movies.
His last couple of movies were horribly rated by critics and audience.
Yeah, it's like a Fast 10. And well, here's the thing. The Fast and the Furious franchise has like gone off the rails like substantially since they decided, let's bring in superpowers. I'm like, can we go back to when it was about car racing? I just want that. But on that note, that seems like a good place to wrap it up.
Yep.
Brucifer, it was a pleasure having you on. I hope to have you on again. You're always
Sure,
welcome.
anytime.
So where can one find you, my friend?
You can find me at Kingdom of Nerds on the YouTubes, and you can find me at Renovision Friday nights on Get Off My Lawn. Well, it's not Get Off My Lawn anymore. It's actually the Qualified. So Monday nights, Monday Madness, and Fridays is the other show, which I haven't come up with a name yet. I'm thinking of calling it Between the Covers, where everybody celebrate their fandom.
That's good. Yeah, it sounds like fun. Again, you're always welcome on the channel, brother. So
thank you.
Stay heroic, everyone, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.